are so bright.
Well, good morning, daylight burners. I'm should have let that one go a little bit, but I didn't. So, anyway, welcome. This is the Friday, March 20th edition of the Friggin Farm and Ranch Report. Last show of the week, and we'll tell you how everything's going. Let me let me get everything finished, set up here. I jumped the gun. I set some new shortcuts for me, and let's just say it worked, but I was not ready. I was not ready for the full thing. All right, so for the Friday, March 20th edition of the Friggin Farm and Ranch Report, I'm ready now, guys. I'm so ready. You don't even realize how ready we are. Look at this shortcut. Kapow! Nothing. Didn't work. Kapow! There we are. Got it. If you're watching. I got my first slide up and it looks cool. It's got a feedlot in the background. I didn't do any of this part. This is all this one I think is ChatGPT if I remember right. But anyway, feed grains jumped hard yesterday. So corn, beans, meal, wheat all climbed due to tight fundamentals, and dry weather finally woke up the boards. That's not my direct quote, but I think that's pretty good. It's pretty accurate. Cattle futures tanked while the cash held steady, and box beef stayed rich, showing the Packers were under pressure even before the JBS Greeley strike, which we will talk a little bit about today. But that strike tightens the kill chain even further. BLM also kicked off major horse gathers across Nevada, pulling off over 2,500 head from ranges where the actual head counts were anywhere from 4 to 5 different, or 4 to 5 times their normal or their alleged allowable management limit. But what changed? So today's market, live cattle futures dropped $2 to $3 across the board. Feeders shed $3.50 to $6. Cash bids held steady around $2.32 to $2.35 on the Fed Cattle Exchange, but pretty light trade. Corn pushed up 5 to 7 cents higher to the mid 420s. Soybeans and 2026 contracts added 67 cents. Soy meal jumped $7 to $11 a ton, and wheat stacked another rally day on top of yesterday's with 11 to 23 cent move. Grains are repricing higher on strong exports. Tight on old crop corn, and wheat. The wheat's quiet bull run. Feed costs aren't backing down into spring turnout. So the cattle board weakness ignores USDA's higher steer price outlook and steady cutouts, widening the bases as the traders bet on packer margins. Excuse me. Packer margin squeezes from slower kills. On the ranch level, you're probably going to have to rerun your cost of gain sheets now, because higher feed with softer feeders means tight break evens for backgrounders and feedlots. Positive basis on fats let you get some value with the hedges, but don't chase the board lows. You got to wait for the cash to prove itself. Small operators, you got to lock up byproducts before the local basis follows the futures on up. So the USDA's March outlook, we talked about this a bit. But we're not just rehashing, still trying to add some context. So the 2026 beef production, they cut the production outlook to 25.8 billion pounds on a slower slaughter. And that's despite having the heavier carcasses. But it jumped steer prices to about 242 a hundredweight on average. Box beef choice eased to about $400. Select just under that, so it's real tight spread. Signals that the Packers are going to pinch even as the grilling season is happening. So that choice select spread is very narrow, which means that just overall beef demand is strong while supply is low. I think that's what that means. That's how I'm taking it. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that just means that beef is high no matter what. So the slaughter slowdown plus the high cutouts means that margins are coming, or they're getting real thin. The Packers chase committed cattle over open market bids. So the futures dump on the futures dumped on the kill. The fears about the pace of the kill, but long-term tight supplies are still going to support cash if disruptions like strikes, if that doesn't snowball. So cow-calf leverage stays strong. USDA confirms shortage type pricing power. Feedlots got to time their show list around formula ties to cut out. Softening boxes hit grids quick. Your hedge basis strength is now. Spring volatility is coming either way. Excuse me. So, and moving on to the JBS Greeley strike, we did cover it a little bit yesterday. Going into further context, I did some research on this. I reached out for comments. So before we get started, I reached out to the following: JBS Swift Greeley, the local union there. I think it's the UCFW local number 7, who is on strike. I reached out to Five Rivers Cattle Feeding, and I reached out to National Cattlemen's Beef Association, U.S. Cattlemen's Association, and RCAF USA. As of this is where are we at? 9:15 Pacific Daylight Time. I have heard back from Bill Bullard of RCAF USA and nobody else as of yet. I did send all of that out pretty late last night. So, but that being said, I still haven't heard anything back. I looked for a contact. My contact emails were not working for both NCBA and U.S. Cattlemen's Association. So for anybody who's a member of those organizations and would like to know that pertinent info, if somebody could fix that, that'd be great. So I just sent them a tweet, both asking for comment. As I said, nothing heard back as of yet, but except for Bill Bullard, and I will be having him back on the show in the near future. He's going to be out of town in Washington, D.C. next week, but I will be touching base with him while he's there. So that's kind of cool, finding out what's going on. But then we'll have him on for about an hour-long interview when he gets out of D.C. and has time to talk. But for this morning, he had for comment from RCAF USA, quote, "A strike caused reduction in slaughter at the Greeley plant will potentially back up cattle, giving beef packers even more leverage to lower cattle prices. We hope the strike doesn't last long, as it will be the smaller family scale feedlots that will be challenged to sell their cattle in a timely manner." End quote. So that's Bill Bullard from RCAF USA. I believe he's still president over there. I don't know if CEO, but anyway, he's the main guy over there at RCAF USA. So roughly 3,800 UFCW. So that's United Food and Construction Workers, I think. Commercial, United Food and Commercial Workers, local number 7 members walked out of the JBS Swift beef plant in Greeley. The first major meatpacking strike in about 40 years since 1980s. It's now into day 4 after a 99% strike authorization vote. The plant is limping at reduced capacity with picket lines up and some workers crossing, and JBS trying to keep kills going while public and political pressure builds. At full tilt, Greeley can run about 6,000 head a day. So right now they're running somewhere from 40 to 50% capacity, with some workers crossing picket lines and returning to work. But at 6,000 head a day, that's especially if it's completely shut down, but even running at 40, 50%, that's those big numbers for the national beef numbers. So the union had fired unfair labor practice charges well before the walkouts. Talks had dragged on for months, and reports out of Colorado say that the plant is running under normal head counts, which sends some cattle to, so it's running under normal head counts, about 40, 50%, and it's sending some cattle to other packers and and then just leaving some of them just sit on feed. So union demands are centered on wages that actually keep up with the last couple of years of inflation, cutting what workers say is more than $1,000 a year they pay out of pocket for required safety gear. So that's PPE that the workers are forced to pay out of pocket for. Slowing down the line speeds, they say, are unsafe, which we talked about that yesterday. I think if I remember, the numbers were jumped up from 390 head an hour to 420 or 430, which, I mean, that's cooking right along. And you're using very, very sharp knives. So yeah, it's a dangerous deal, and you want to keep those guys safe because you want to keep beef coming out at a steady pace and feeding the world as you will. But yeah, you can't ramp that up too much, or people start getting limbs cut off, or some serious accidents happen. And it's notorious through the packing industry. So as far as the unfair labor practices scenario, I'm, as you guys know that have listened for a while, I'm not necessarily a pro-union guy, but I'm definitely not necessarily an anti-union guy. I look at unions like I look at the government. I think they are necessary, but you gotta keep them very, very strictly focused. They can get big and unwieldy and corrupt in a big damn hurry. So that being said, I feel like corporations, you gotta keep them in check too. They'll especially when they're publicly owned. Like is JBS public? I think they are public now, or at least they were working on going public. But yeah, it's a corporation. There's not really there's the CEO, but he's not an owner necessarily. So it's just like it's a faceless, nameless blob that doesn't face real accountability on that. So I kind of halfway tend to side with the unions on the unfair labor practices deal. So they also say that improving health coverage has gotten, that because their health coverage has gotten more expensive. They were saying that on a 30 cents an hour raise that they got over the last year, 22 cents of it was spent on making up the health insurance premium. So that's I'd say they definitely have an argument on the wages. However, I'd say that JBS probably has a argument on the wages, but their answers is just a pattern agreement that it already used at other plants. It goes modest raises and small safety tweaks and calling it fair industry standard, but the union says that does not match that it doesn't their wages don't match local costs or the plant's conditions. So I already told you the Bill Bullard quote. So again, a strike caused reduction in slaughter at the Greeley plant will potentially back up cattle, giving beef packers even more leverage to lower cattle prices. We hope the strike doesn't last long, as it will be the smaller family scale feedlots that will be challenged to sell their cattle in a timely manner. And that's the definite worry. That's a bottleneck at a giant plant like that turns into cattle backing up, getting fatter, and then dying by the day. With weaker country bids and more leverage in the hands of the big four packers, and that is just not what we're all about. All right, so moving on to the hold on, my script notes didn't continue on through. So in the very short term, killing fewer cattle can actually support box beef prices and give the surviving plants a little more room to pay up for cattle if wholesale beef jumps. But if the thing drags out, Bill Bullard is right. The cattle can start backing up in smaller yards that don't have long-term contracts. They don't have like the grid type deals or the deep relationships. While the packers sort cattle however it's going to suit them. That's how it's going to work. It's how it's always worked, always will. So if you ship to Greeley or through yards tied to Greeley, plan for pickup timing to get sloppier until there's a deal on the table. The union has said they're striking for 2 weeks. They hope it doesn't last that long. It's amazing what 2 weeks can do. Remember 2 weeks to flatten the curve? 2 weeks can turn into 3 years. So plan on that if that's where you're shipping cattle, or if you're shipping to JBS yard or Five Rivers yards up in that area. Any of the cattle that might eventually make it to Greeley, if you have them, make make plans now. So I guess from a principled standpoint, I feel like most of the ranchers and definitely the cowboys are a lot closer to they're a lot more aligned to those frontline workers at the plant than they are these big giant packers. It's a hard job. It's dirty work, and they're not necessarily making a whole lot of money. And it's dangerous. It's a dangerous system. It's a very underappreciated one. The packers get a lot of grief, deservedly so. But I think a lot of times the workers that work there shouldn't be included in that. Particularly, JBS has a particularly heinous track record of hiring contractors that employ in quotes like 14-year-old Guatemalan girls to use very very corrosive and dangerous chemicals to clean their meat packing plants. So I don't want to say it's slave labor, because I assume in the United States of America a man, a woman, or a child is getting paid for their labor. But I don't know that they were. It's kind of a weird deal. And JBS is right there in the middle of it. Those sneaky Brazilian fucks. So anyways, I think you kind of want to stand by the side of the workers there, as much as I don't care for the unions, and particularly the union leadership. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this goes, and I hope to get some comment back from any of these other people that I reached out to. All right, so now we'll get on back to the horse narrative. So BLM Horse Gathers out here in Nevada. It's running 4 simultaneous bait and water gathers across the state, targeting a little over 2,000 head of wild horses, feral horses, and 425 burros out of the Antelope and Triple B area, the Caliente area, the Pancake area, and the Spring Mountains complexes. So the herds are now north of 35,000 head on land that BLM's own numbers say should be closer to 12 to 15,000. Well, some herd management areas, or HMAs, are running 5 to 6 times their official appropriate management level, or AML. So these gathers are mostly quiet trap jobs instead of using helicopters, usually with short public notice and emergency tags tied to the poor range condition. The gathered animals are then they head off to other holding facilities, and then either adopted or left in a feedlot to, I guess, just get decrepit and die there. At least that's what it looked like when I worked at said holding facility. Granted, it was only for a month, but that's what I saw. I picked up my fair share of dead horses from those holding pens, and they were not ever going to be adopted out because of I think if they're older than 6, they can't be adopted out. So we can't kill them. So just steal a bunch of money from taxpayers to feed those horses till they die. But that's neither here nor there. That was about almost 9 years ago. Almost 9 years ago. Okay, so the overpopulation is not just an abstract number. These are living, breathing animals on the same cricks and seeps and tanks and all the upland grasses that are permitted for cattle usage and sheep. It's all land and vegetation that animals that ranchers are counting on for their animals to make a living. So the riparian areas are getting hammered. The banks are bare. The springs are stomped out. On roughly 3/4 of the acres affected, ranchers are paying to turn their cattle out under a permit, while the feral horse numbers are allowed to blow well past the agreed on AML. The wild horse advocacy groups, these people are insane. They're already raising hell. They're saying the emergency label is abused and that body condition scores are fine. That's like back in the 90s when bulimia was sexy, when it was sexy to look like an Auschwitz survivor. That's kind of how these wild horse people are. That their body condition score is fine. Nobody is ugly on a horse. He's not malnourished. He's not privileged. He's not nutritionally privileged. No, they're starving to death because they ate all the fucking grass and we're not allowed to manage them. Before the whole Wild Horse Act or whatever it was, the ranchers that ran that country with cattle, they would gather the horses, they would introduce new blood from time to time, and then they would pull the horses that they wanted to use for ranch work, and then they kept the herd manageable and better off. Now you just have a bunch of slop and a bunch of and it's not even just, it's not like any of the other DEI left-wing cottage movements where it's all led by a bunch of bellowing purple-haired communist dyke wildebeests. No, you have like a bunch of like pudgy, wealthy, or at least have some means about them, middle-aged white women who just love the horses, and you can't touch them ever. And yeah, so they're already up in arms. There's all sorts of posts. If you're on Facebook, I don't do the TikTok as much, so I'm not sure on that. But I know on Facebook I've already seen there's dozen or so dead, according to the BLM numbers. Only one of them was actually was like accidentally killed. The rest of them were poor condition or blind, so they had to put them down. But they say the body condition scores are fine. This is the wild horse crazies, and the BLM is just funneling horses towards a slaughter pipeline through adoption and sale. The BLM points to range trend data and the photographs that showed the country being just devastated. And so that fight's not going away anytime soon, but I'm glad to see that we're getting rid of some of them. For the ranchers in northeastern and central Nevada, the BLM actually follows through and holds the numbers near the AMLs that are agreed upon. Then this is like the first real step towards getting back to some sort of sanity on that of managing those ranges and getting some grass and water back in there. But it's not going to fix anything this year. Those riparian zones and the perennial grasses that are devastated. It takes a long time and being very careful with it to get that back to where you can actually run cattle and horses side by side and make sure the rest of the wildlife is able to grow and thrive out there. It's going to take a long time. So, yeah. And then I guess, on the same side of things with the fires is if you're running cattle on these things, document it. Got to document it. Photos, notes, and dates, what the springs look like, what the banks look like, what the slope above them looks like. If the gathers are done and the horse numbers creep, just keep creeping right back up. That all that is what you'll be used if when you have fights with the BLM, or if you have to push BLM and Congress to either enforce those limits, or with some real tools, or you have to make them admit that they're choosing the horses over every other use of that ground. So make sure you document it. So next slide. Weather and fire. So updated maps still show that more than 40% of the U.S. is in some form of drought heading into spring. So the Four Corners area, the Front Range, and a big chunk of the High Plains is flagged as an elevated wildfire risk. Snowpack is real thin across the Rockies. So interior West and Montana and Idaho and Wyoming, Colorado as well, which feels dry out later or sooner if we don't get any March and April moisture. Forecasters are particularly nervous about the western halves of Texas and Oklahoma, Kansas and Nebraska, along with eastern Colorado, where the warm, windy days ahead of the green up can turn any spark into a fast-moving grass fire. We've already seen it. Nebraska, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. I don't know so much about Colorado if we've had many fires in eastern Colorado yet, but it's bound to happen, and so take precaution. The combination of drought and early fire risk hits the same country that shares that runs a big share of our nation's cow herd and wheat pasture. So if the fires start cutting across there again, it's not just the grass that burns, fence, power, and truck routes that go along with it. Right when your yearling and your calves are yearlings and calves are supposed to be moving around. So out here in Nevada and across the West, it's time to you gotta get your fire prep done, clean around the buildings, check brakes, and think about where where you're going to move your stock if something does fire up. Pasture plans for 2026 need drought versions built in right from the start. Which pastures can you let go? Which cows have to go first? What leases you're not willing to carry into a dry summer? All that type of stuff makes a big difference in a crazy weather year like we got coming up. So to tie it all up for the day and for the week, the grain rally just tightened every ration in the country. You gotta check your break even again, cost of gain, before you get to buying any more feeders. The JBS Greeley strike it's a leverage fight, and as Mr. Bullard points out, backed up cattle hand packers way more power unless this gets settled quick. So, and it's the smaller family owned and operated type operations that are going to get squeezed before anything else. The Nevada horse gatherers are finally admitting what ranchers have watched for years, and that the wild horse numbers are way beyond what they're supposed to be, and what are agreed upon AMLs, and it's wrecking all this range that we the public land that all these horse people like to wax editorial about, but they never seem to figure in the rancher that's been there forever into their equation of shared public land. I don't want to share it with the rancher, just everybody else. They don't want to actually share it with you. They don't actually want anything to do with it. Just don't kill the horses, because they might like to take a drive out there one time and take a look at them. Do they ever do it? Probably not, but they like the idea of it. They sure like the idea of it. But anyway, it's wrecking this shared range that we're supposed to all live in harmony on. But that can only happen if the BLM sticks with the real management after they get back to the agreed upon levels. Drought and early fire risk are stacked on top of the higher feed and political fights over packing plants and the public land. So stocking conservative and planning aggressive is probably a better way to go. But it's hard to get a whole lot more conservative on numbers than it is right now. It's they're pretty conservative. So ranchers still supply the cattle and carry the risk. A steady labor deal is at the plant, and working range management and a firm grasp on your costs is what keeps the side of the train from getting steamrolled. So let's hope for a quick, hopefully favorable outcome for the workers there at JBS Greeley. And as much as we hate those sorry cocksuckers, we want those packers to get back up and killing cattle again, so we can keep this whole train moving. And hopefully we can get something done that gives guys like you, me and you, and your average ordinary independent rancher a little bit more skin, not skin in the game, but a little more bite of the pie, I think, is what they're all looking for. So let's hope all of that all's well that ends well, I would say. And let's see if I'm on the right tab. Pachow! I'm back. Just changed it again. Boom. Look at that. Boom. I'm doing all sorts of shortcuts on my screen here. But that's all I got for this week on the Friggin Farm Ranch Report. We'll be back next week, hopefully with some good information from Bill Bullard. Hopefully we get some more comment and quotes from the other parties involved in this JBS kill plant strike. And yeah. Pray for some rain, huh? I think that's a good advice. I think that's good advice to end on. Pray for some rain. Don't let your butt crack. Keep it between the lines. Stay in the middle, and Go ahead and move your ass because we're burning daylight.
Your eyes up in the morning beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Just together, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.